I have nothing to do.
Amiga, estou cheinha de trabalho. E tu? Eu vou estar um dia santo. Só tenho de reunir com a quinta. E com o catering, o fotógrafo, o videógrafo, os músicos, a florista, a pousada, a celebrante, a designer, o animador, os padrinhos, a maquilhadora, a cabeleireira, a decoradora, os noivos, claro. Depois, como é que está doido? E como é que vais conseguir fazer isso tudo? Então, eu pode com a Vodafone Business. Isso pode tudo. Descubra as soluções semanas de colaboração e torna a sua experiência mais produtiva. Together we can. Vodafone Business.
Morning, Dr. Kamashima. Can you hear me?
Yes, Professor Luis. Yes, I
Good
can
morning
hear you.
to you and our colleagues from Sanober Institute. It's a pleasure.
It's equally pleasure, Professor Dr. Luis, and welcome from our side. This is good afternoon here. Welcome to all of your students and colleagues. It's great to be with you people.
Well, it is in your hands, Dr. Kamashima. So,
okay,
maybe we should start. I please ask you to stop our conference it's 10 minutes before 11 in our time, 10 minutes before 15 your time.
Okay, sure. So just let me start by informing that I have with me in this panel Ambassador Azaz Ahmad Chaudhry. He is, former Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, and he is the chairman of the Sanober Institute. He was ambassador to the United States of America as well, and had a 37-year-long career in Foreign Service of Pakistan. He has written many books, and he has spoken at global platforms as well. I have with me from the Pakistani side, the former Vice Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Khan Hasham bin Siddiq. He has served on several key command and staff appointments during his career in Pakistan Navy. He belongs to the surface warfare arm of Navy and has commanded ships, squadrons, and the Pakistan Navy fleet. He has also distinction of commanding the Combined Task Force 150 and in Bahrain. And he has a long career. He is a former Vice Chief of Naval Staff and also the former Pakistan's ambassador to Saudi Arabia, and he speaks extensively at global platforms. Our next speaker, she will be joining us shortly, Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi. She's a retired diplomat with over 37 years of experience in Pakistan's foreign service, and she has been ambassador to China, European Union, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Ireland, and she is an avid speaker, has been speaking around the world at many conferences. We also have with us from Portugal, Lisbon, Professor Dr. Luis Thom. He's a full professor at the Autonomous University of Lisbon, where he is the director of the International Relations Department and of its research unit. And professor, he has been visiting professor at the universities in Brazil, Europe, Turkey, U.S. and China. He was a special advisor to international relations and counterterrorism in the office of the Minister of Home Affairs, a special advisor to the Vice President of the European Parliament, and NATO researcher. We also have with us as a second speaker from Portugal, professor at the Autonomous University of Lisbon, Department of International Relations, Professor Carlos Gasper. He's a senior researcher at the Portuguese Institute of International Relations at Nova University, Lisbon, where he served as a director for 5 years and associate researcher at OBSERVARE. So we have a rich panel with us. And Professor Gasper, he was advisor to the National Defense Institute and the board of directors of the Orient Foundation. He served as a counselor to the president of Portuguese Republic, Antonio Ramlaho Ains, and Mario Soares, and George Sampio in different occasions. Please excuse my pronunciation in that case if I couldn't explain properly. Regarding this, the Sanober Institute. Sanober Institute, let me tell you, is a private sector think tank. And at the Sanober Institute, our vision simply and our goals are, our goals are rooted in thorough, objective, and non-partisan analysis of key issues. We aim to provide recommendations that can be scaled from macro policy reforms to micro level interventions. We learn from global best practices and adapt them to the local context. We work with different sectors, particularly academics, institutions, practitioners, and we are a private sector think tank. And largely we work on, our focus is on geopolitics, geoeconomics, governance, and environmental issues. And we are happy to engage with the Autonomous University of Lisbon, which is a private university located in Lisbon. And I remember I had the honor to be in this room about 2 years back to speak to the students. And it's a great honor to engage again with the university, with the Autonomous University of Lisbon and the Sanober Institute. Now, if I can request Ambassador in the list of the speakers, as we have with us, I would request Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhry, to whom I have introduced already, former Foreign Secretary of Pakistan and the Chairman, Sanober Institute. Over to you, Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhry.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kamachima. Greetings to all in this webinar, and to special thanks to University Autónoma de Lisbon, Professor Luis and Professor Casper. As Dr. Kamachima has indicated, Sanober Institute is an independent voice, and we have been fortunate to have partnered with Portugal Embassy in Islamabad to showcase your beautiful country to the people of Pakistan. Greetings to my two other colleagues who are also joining this particular webinar. Now, the subject, European Union South Asia relations in the current geopolitical context, would require me to first start with my assessment of the geopolitical context. There are 4 points I would like to make. My first point is that the world order that we had known since the end of the Second World War in 1945 is no longer in intact shape. We see that there is a complete disarray of the norms that had underpinned that order. We also see a disturbing trend of unilateralism, whereby major centers of power which have emerged are exerting their power potential unilaterally, with multilateralism on the descendant. And we also see that it is now a truly multipolar world with several centers of power. But some other disturbing trends include the rise in xenophobia, hatred for outsiders, and narrow nationalism. We also see the world had worked hard on free international trade, and now protectionist walls are going up. We see migrants no longer a fresh blood into societies, but are viewed as security threat or economic threat. Even climate change has become controversial despite a universal consensus on it because of the United States policies under Trump administration. So the worldwide, there is a disorder that we see around, and the rule-based international order is sliding back. The second trend that I see in the global geopolitical context is that there is a major power competition, particularly between the United States and China, which is intensifying. And we have also seen this competition play out, particularly in Asia, where the United States is relying on its military muscle through Indo-Pacific strategy, Quad, and other instruments. And the Chinese are relying on their economic muscle, essentially through their programs such as Belt and Road Initiative to reach out to the rest of the world. So world is not yet divided into camps, and the Cold War is not yet in place, but this competition is quite complex, and the countries are being called upon to make choices in favor of one or the other. The third geopolitical context I want to highlight is with regard to South Asia, and the fourth with regard to European Union. On South Asia, this is a region which remains least integrated. Unlike Europe, we have the biggest country in India, but it seems to be at loggerheads with nearly all other South Asian countries, including Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and even Maldives. And SAARC, which is the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, created in 1985, is also dysfunctional at the moment. On the European Union side, we see that things are changing there too. The relations between Europe and United States, the so-called transatlantic alliance, has weakened. We also see some economies of Europe not doing very well. And then above all, there is a war in Ukraine, which has created considerable hardships for Europeans. And we also see European countries spending more on their security and defense budget. So this is the world we are looking at this moment. Now, the subject, whether European Union and South Asia have a very potent relations, I'm afraid that there is very little region-to-region engagement. The fault is not that of European Union. It has done well as a region, but South Asia has not done, unfortunately. Two reasons for that. One is because there is no regional integration at this time. And second, the focus of European Union is on India, the bigger country, rather than South Asia as a whole. Another point I want to make on this is that the emphasis of European Union has mostly been on economic investment and commercial relations with individual countries in South Asia, including, of course, with Pakistan and Bangladesh, which focus a lot on GSP+. But then most of the individual countries have their own economic partnerships with India, but as well as with other countries. So not as a region, but with individual countries. Third point I would like to make within this context is that Europe somehow tends to tilt towards India, possibly to push back China. That we think has given a limited role to the European Union in South Asia. I think this perspective needs some change because there are considerable opportunities of staying engaged with South Asia. Other countries, initiatives such as China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and Chinese growing interest in other countries, and the Europeans themselves also want to stay engaged probably with China. So that I would feel is something that the Europeans might wish to consider, that besides India, they might wish to increase their political engagement with other European countries, other South Asian countries. Politically, I would say that Europe's role has been traditionally limited in South Asia, except for UK, which had, of course, colonial links here. And we believe that to give you an example, in the recent India-Pakistan crisis, while there were several countries which were trying to play a role to mediate somehow, including particularly United States, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, even Iran. But European Union as a whole and individually was not really there playing much role. So I believe that politically also they need to be a little bit more active with South Asia and contribute to making this region also learn from some of the highlights that European Union has achieved. The exclusive focus that your EU has on human rights, labor standards is well placed, but I think a much greater attention needs to be placed on education. You are a university yourself, education, public health, and other areas which would contribute to the social development aspects of South Asian countries. Finally, a word or two about Pakistan's relations with Portugal. As I indicated, Portugal is a respected name in Pakistan. We have excellent relations with your country, but the commercial and trade links are really very limited. I think there is much greater scope, but even greater scope is on the cultural side because Portugal is a very rich culture, and and it's a bastion of tourism. So there's much that Pakistan can also learn from Portugal. I think with these few words, I'll hand over the floor back to Dr. Kamashima.
Thank you very much, Chaudhary Sahab, for explaining the EU-Asia relations and also explaining that how Pakistan can engage with the Europe. And at the same time, I think you rightly mentioned that Europe needs to zoom out and to look the entire region from a lens where there is a rising middle class in Pakistan and other countries where there are more opportunities and people are affluent. They have resources, and over the period of time, I have also seen that. Because of Pakistan's rising middle class, people can afford to go abroad for studies in Europe, USA, UK. That tells that the Europe also needs to look that Pakistan's middle class is also educated with the foreign education degrees, and they are performing here. So thank you very much, Ambassador Azam Achor. Now I would request Professor Louis Thom, who is the Director, Department of International Relations, and he's definitely the backbone behind all this conference we are arranging today between the Autonomous University and the Sanober Institute. Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Kamashima, and you are the backbone as well. So thank you, and thank you, Sanober Institute, for engaging this organization, the other distinguished speakers and participants online and here at the auditorium. Let me just share my PowerPoint. Yeah. The European Union's relations with South Asia are a key component of its broader strategy for Asia Indo-Pacific region, which has become a geopolitical priority due to its strategic, economic, and security significance. South Asia, particularly India, lies at the heart of the Indo-Pacific corridor, serving as a bridge between the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and East Africa. The EU views its connectivity with South Asia as critical to ensuring resilient supply chains, maritime security, and open sea lanes, especially through key shock points like the Indian Ocean and Strait of Hormuz. South Asia is part of the EU's efforts to diversify trade and investment relationships in Asia and Indo-Pacific, as also the EU's sustainable development and labor rights agenda. The EU leverages its relationships in South Asia to promote climate action, democratic governance, and human rights, values at the core of its foreign policy and Indo-Pacific strategy. South Asian countries are recipients of EU development cooperation aimed at achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The EU is expanding maritime security collaboration in the Indian Ocean through joint exercises with South Asian navies, notably India, as well as the information sharing platforms like the Information Fusion Center Indian Ocean region. Projects like nation security cooperation in and with Asia and critical maritime routes in the Indian Ocean include South Asian nations in efforts to promote maritime domain awareness and cyber resilience. India is the EU's primary strategic partner in South Asia, with cooperation spanning trade, climate, security, and digital technologies. India is also central to EU efforts to counterbalance China's influence in the region while promoting a free, open, and rules-based order. The EU supports regional cooperation through platforms like South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation and seeks to complement other regional initiatives such as the Bay of Bengal Initiative, BIMSTEC, linking South and Southeast Asia. Engagement with South Asia supports the EU's vision for an inclusive and rules-based Asia-Indo-Pacific, resisting unilateral actions and promoting stability in fragile areas. So South Asia serves as both a strategic gateway and a critical partner in the EU's Indo-Pacific strategy. But the EU's relationship with each of the South Asian countries is, however, highly diverse, as can easily be observed in areas such as trade and security. India is the only South Asian country at the top 10 of the largest trading partners of the EU. Bangladesh ranks in the 40s, and Pakistan ranks as the 50th largest trading partner of the EU. Other South Asian countries generally rank lower in the EU's trade partner list. But the EU as a bloc is a significant trading partner for the South Asian region, especially with India and Pakistan. The EU is India's largest trading partner, the second largest destination of Indian exports, and it is also one of the largest foreign investors in India. Ongoing negotiations for a free trade agreement with India are part of a broader EU's Indo-Pacific economic outreach. The EU is Pakistan's second largest trading partner, the primary destination for Pakistani exports. However, the EU is a smaller trade partner for some South Asian countries, such as Bhutan or Afghanistan. And these rankings reflect the EU's significant but varied trading relations within South Asia, with India being the most prominent trading partner in the region. Also, in terms of security, the EU has been actively enhancing its security cooperation with South Asian countries, particularly with India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. The EU and India have held multiple maritime security dialogues, focusing on countering illicit maritime activities, protecting critical infrastructure, and enhancing maritime domain awareness. Joint naval exercises have been conducted between the Indian Navy and the EU Naval Force, notably in the Gulf of Aden. The EU has proposed placing a liaison officer at India's Information Fusion Center, Indian Ocean region, to bolster information sharing and maritime security cooperation. India and the EU are exploring a comprehensive security and defense partnership, including India's potential participation in the EU's multinational defense projects. A security of information agreement is under negotiation to facilitate classified information sharing between the two parties. Under the Enhancing Security Cooperation in and with Asia project, the EU and India collaborate on cybersecurity, counterterrorism, and crisis management. Discussions are ongoing to expand cooperation into space security, reflecting mutual interests in emerging security domains. France, representing EU interests, has signed agreements with Bangladesh to provide satellite technology and facilitate infrastructure development loans. Both countries have expressed intentions to elevate their partnership to a strategic level with a focus on maritime domain awareness and non-traditional security issues. While specific recent initiatives are less documented, the EU and Pakistan have historically engaged in dialogues focusing on counterterrorism, border management, and regional stability. The EU supports Pakistan through various programs aimed at enhancing law enforcement capabilities and promoting good governance practices. And of course, there are several multilateral initiatives, such as the EU's Enhancing Security Cooperation in and with Asia project, serving as a platform for collaboration with South Asian countries on cybersecurity, counterterrorism, maritime security, and the critical maritime routes in the Indian Ocean initiative, aiming to improve maritime domain awareness and information sharing among countries in the Indo-Pacific region, including South Asia. These collaborations underscore the EU's commitment to strengthening security and defense ties with South Asian nations, addressing shared challenges, and promoting regional stability. The European Union's relations with South Asia countries are significantly influenced by its broader strategic relations with global powers such as the United States, China, and Russia. The relationships of India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan with Russia have complex historical and strategic roots, and these ties significantly influence how these South Asian countries engage with the EU. India maintains a long-standing strategic partnership with Russia, especially in defense. Almost 40% of India's military equipment originates from Russia. During the war in Ukraine, India has not condemned Russia outright, choosing instead a non-aligned strategic autonomy approach. It continues to buy Russian oil and weapons, often at a discounted rates. The EU, especially after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, expects global partners to align with its sanctions regime and condemnation of Russian aggression. India's neutrality creates strategic friction with the EU. But however, the EU values India as a counterweight to China, and it's therefore reluctant to let differences over Russia derail broader cooperation in trade, technology, climate, and security. This creates a pragmatic but cautious partnership where the EU increasingly engages India in areas not directly tied to Russia. Pakistan-Russia relations have traditionally been distant due to Cold War alliances, but recent years have seen warming ties, including Pakistan's accession to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, talks on energy deals such as gas pipelines, the Pakistan Stream Project, joint military drills and counterterrorism cooperation, and high-level visits, including former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan's controversial visit to Moscow on the day of Ukraine invasion. The EU views Pakistan's tilt toward Russia with caution, but not alarm. However, closer Pakistan-Russia ties could weaken Western leverage over time, especially if Islamabad starts relying more on Russian energy or arms. And in Afghanistan, post-2021, Russia has maintained open channels with the Taliban, even hosting delegations and providing humanitarian aid. It seeks to ensure stability and counter ISIS-K threats in Central Asia. The EU, by contrast, has not recognized the Taliban, although it has provided humanitarian assistance and maintains limited technical engagement. Russia's support of the Taliban, even if pragmatic, indirectly hinders EU goals of promoting international norms in Afghanistan. Russia's relationship with these three South Asian countries create divergent challenges for the EU. With India, the tension lies in values versus strategic pragmatism. With Pakistan, there's a concern about shifting alignments and lost leverage. With Afghanistan, Russia competes with the EU for influence, values, and principles in a fragile, strategically located state. These dynamics underscore a larger challenge for the EU, maintaining a coherent foreign policy in South Asia, while balancing support for international law, strategic partnerships, stability, and development goals. The transatlantic alliance with the United States often aligns the EU with U.S. policies in South Asia, particularly regarding counterterrorism, democratic governance, and regional stability. This alignment can sometimes limit the EU's room for maneuver, especially in countries where the U.S. policies are viewed with skepticism. The U.S. has taken a stronger strategic tilt toward India, particularly under its Indo-Pacific strategy and Quad partnership, and has generally avoided harsh criticism of India. The EU, by contrast, tries to maintain a more values-based approach, raising human rights issues while engaging all sides diplomatically. This can occasionally create subtle transatlantic friction. The EU emphasizes international law and civil liberties, while the US prioritizes strategic containment of China, often sidelining human rights debates to avoid alienating India. The EU's complex relationship with China also affects its approach to South Asia. As China expands its influence in the region through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, the EU seeks to offer alternative models of cooperation based on transparency, sustainability, and rules-based governance. This can lead to both collaboration and tension with South Asian countries, depending on their strategic priorities. China-Pakistan economic corridor further complicates the EU's potential investment strategies. The EU's increasing concerns over Chinese assertivenesses in the Indo-Pacific and on its borders puts it in a delicate position. The EU avoids echoing the US line, aiming to maintain strategic autonomy. My fourth point is related with the Kashmir dispute. It complicates the EU's bilateral ties with both India and Pakistan, and adds complexity to its strategic positioning toward China. China supports Pakistan's position on Kashmir and has its own territorial claims in Ladakh and Aksai Chin, making the issue even more geopolitically complex. While the EU strives to maintain neutrality and uphold human rights, it also has to prioritize stability, trade, and long-term strategic interests. The EU has expressed concern over human rights in Indian administered Kashmir. The European Parliament, for example, has debated several resolutions critical of India's action in Kashmir, including issues like restrictions on communications, detentions of political leaders, press freedom violations. These concerns strain diplomatic relations with India, which often sees such debates as interference in internal affairs. At the same time, the EU also cautions Pakistan on cross-border terrorism and support for militant groups, maintaining a balanced, neutral stance. The India-Pakistan rivalry limits EU's strategic cooperation with the region as a whole. The EU must navigate carefully to avoid appearing partial. Security cooperation, especially on counter-terrorism, is complicated by mutual suspicion between the two South Asian rivals. This rivalry also weakens regional economic integration, making it harder for the EU to support multilateral trade or infrastructure initiatives like those under the Global Gateway or regional connectivity schemes. Finally, the Kashmir diaspora in some EU states, especially of Pakistani origin, actively lobbies EU institutions, influencing political discourse and occasionally generating diplomatic friction, particularly with India. So the EU must balance democratic values and human rights advocacy with geopolitical realism. It needs India as a partner in trade, tech, and regional stability. It continues development and counter-terrorism partnerships with Pakistan. The EU's neutral rules-based posture allows it to act as a potential mediator or confidence builder. However, the EU does not appear to have sufficient political influence in Islamabad or New Delhi to play such a role. Moreover, India remains unwilling to accept third-party mediation or to multilateralize discussions regarding the Kashmir disputes. The Kashmir issue remains a low-profile but high-impact factor in shaping how assertive or cautious the EU is in the South Asia diplomacy. Finally, my last point is related with most important challenges and opportunities. The EU is working to foster institution building, democracy, good governance, and human rights, while it also has security concerns such as Kashmir conflict, Afghanistan, maritime security, and terrorism. Rising tensions between global powers, particularly the U.S. China rivalry and China's growing influence in South Asia, complicate the EU's diplomatic balancing act in the region. Issues such as restrictions on civil liberties, press freedom, and minority rights in countries like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh clash with the EU's value-based foreign policy and affect trade preferences. Despite renewed talks, the EU-India Free Trade Agreement negotiations face hurdles due to differences over tariffs, intellectual property rights, and sustainability clauses. Border conflicts, terrorism, and the Taliban regime in Afghanistan pose risks to regional stability and EU investments. South Asia remains a significant source of irregular migration to the EU. Managing migration while respecting human rights is a complex policy challenge. South Asia is highly exposed to climate change impacts, but capacity to adapt and finance green transition remains uneven, posing challenges for joint climate action. But there are major opportunities as well. Both the EU and South Asian countries like India seek to reduce overdependence on China, opening space for closer closer economic, technological, and security cooperation. The EU can support South Asia's digital transformation and energy transition through technology transfers, sustainable infrastructure, and climate finance. Ensuring open sea lanes and rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific aligns with both the EU and India's strategic goals, offering scope for naval cooperation and joint exercises. South Asia's young, tech-savvy population offers a vibrant market and talent pool for EU industries, particularly in IT, clean tech, and research. Projects enhancing regional connectivity align with EU goals for sustainable development and market access. And South Asia and the EU can collaborate in forums like the United Nations, WTO, and G20 on global issues such as climate change, health security, and digital regulation. In sum, the EU's relationship with South Asia is characterized by cooperation in trade, regional stability, sustainable development, human rights, and cultural exchanges. The EU sees South Asia as a key region for economic growth, strategic partnerships, and global influence. And again, South Asia serves as both a strategic gateway and a critical partner in the EU's Asia-Indo-Pacific strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Luis, for in-depth explaining and in detail explaining us the European perspective for Asia, and I think you have touched many areas for which obviously many questions will be raised definitely by students, and we'll have a good conversation. Now, if I can request Admiral Khan Hasham bin Sadiq. He's a founding member of the Sanober Institute, and he has been Pakistan's ambassador to Saudi Arabia and also Pakistan's former Vice Chief of Naval Staff. So over to you, Khan Hasham sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kamachima. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone attending this webinar. It's a great pleasure to be here. While opting for participation in this seminar, I was a little apprehensive with respect to my previous background. So I would like to share my take it as an outsider's view. But it was very interesting to hear the maritime security aspects and very aptly pointed out. So let me begin by quoting from Robert Kaplan, who said that the global center of gravity has immeasurably shifted from Eurasia to Indo-Pacific, where the arena for conflict and competition is inherently maritime. So therefore, the focus on maritime security and maritime cooperation is understandable. That's where the future destiny of the world, as indeed of this region, will be decided. A couple of points I would like to add, and in fact echo some of the thoughts expressed by Ambassador Azaz Chaudhry with respect to the overall global geostrategic environment that prevails in terms of a multipolar world. For my own comfort, I think the political influence that EU as one of the strategic poles of the world, particularly in context of South Asia, could have been a little more than what it has been so far. Secondly, 2-3 other trends or drivers that are driving the global geopolitical agenda are obviously the onset of disruptive technologies and the ensuing impact on political and economic and social landscape of the world in foreseeable future of about next 10 years or so, where there will be a major disruption, especially as AI establishes its stranglehold over the global affairs. The other I wish to point out is the aspect of Islamophobia, unfortunately, in some of the countries within the European Union, which rings an alarm bell not only in Pakistan but also across the Muslim world. So therefore, that is another consideration. The third, I wish to re-emphasize on two points already mentioned with respect to cybersecurity, the threat of networks, global networks through cyber attacks emanating from maybe from friendly countries or from even from the enemies and so on and so forth. And the last is perhaps I would like to re-emphasize the impact of climate change that Pakistan is suffering despite contributing less than 0.5% of greenhouse gases emission to the global, in the overall global context. So this is one area where the need for urgent intervention and urgent support from global community to Pakistan is hugely important. It is paradoxical, as Ambassador has pointed out, that a relationship between the least integrated region versus the most integrated region, the EU, which had enjoyed peace and benefits of globalization for the last 2-3 decades following the demise of unipolar world in 2001. It's a model which everybody across the world for a rule-based order. It was a model that was to be emulated by the entire world. Unfortunately, of late there has been the recent upheaval with respect to Ukraine crisis, and then remilitarization of some of the European countries at the behest of the Donald Trump's administration, where the U.S. president would like European Union to spend at least 5% of their GDP in supporting NATO's military campaign. So therefore, as obvious from the Professor Louis Tom narrative as well, I think both EU and the West and the US sees the South Asian region through the prism of Indo-Pacific strategy, largely with a view to contain the ever-growing influence of China, whether that is proposing a counter trade route through India, Middle East, Israel, and Europe, that corridor, and trying its level best to prevent the Belt and Road Initiative to take its shape as it had been planned by the partners, the 60-odd countries that are in partnership with China in the Belt and Road Initiative. I would like to re-emphasize that the Pakistan's economic well-being is predicated on successful completion of China-Pakistan economic corridor. Therefore, in a shift of policy, Pakistan and China welcome investment from the West, from the Middle East, from the Central Asia, to come and invest in the special economic zone. So therefore, for us, the economic well-being is predicated on successful implementation of China-Pakistan economic corridor with an all-inclusive. The second strategic compulsion for Pakistan is to integrate with the region of Middle East and Central Asia, having more or less given up on a fascist regime on our eastern borders, which happens to be a strategic partner with the West in a number of frameworks of Quad and so many other frameworks. So therefore, for us, integration of South Asia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Middle East, the current situation vis-a-vis Iran notwithstanding, is the way to peace and stability in this region. A word about maritime security cooperation. Pakistan has been at the forefront in the collaborative efforts of the global community, and having commanded the Combined Task Force as part of the Coalition Maritime Campaign Plan, and having seen to it that thanks to the vigil maintained by Pakistan Navy in partnership with others and undertaking recognized maritime domain awareness campaign to maintain peace and stability in this region and protection of slots. Thankfully, there has been no terrorist incident, and by and large, there has never been a disruption in the global trade. And we understand that the global community, in particular China and India, Korea, and EU, depend on the POL supplies and the trade which passes through crisscrosses the Indian Ocean. So maintaining security in the maritime arena is a core national interest of Pakistan, as indeed it is with the EU. I think the professor mentioned cooperation with the Indian Fusion Center. May I also inform that we have a joint maritime information and coordination center where all the stakeholders, intra-Pakistan and at least 20 other countries, have a direct link to be able to share maritime picture with each other. And I think EU could do well in perhaps undertaking a similar arrangement. Obviously, the relation between Pakistan and EU are multifaceted. EU remains the second largest trading partner, and GSP1 status is hugely important. We are thankful to EU for their development cooperation and human capital development and their help in science and technology. I feel there is a possibility of increasing political and security cooperation. But on the security cooperation, I would like to mention for the past a decade or so, the access to military technology, which was available to Pakistan, with Pakistan having imported a number of platforms and technology from Sweden, from France, from Germany, and so on and so forth. But since 2015, perhaps at the behest of the regional hegemon India and a shift in policy, the military technologies access to much needed for our defensive purposes has been denied for the last 10 years at least. So I think in order to have a robust security cooperation, such singling out Pakistan for the line of technologies needed for our territorial and other sovereignty issues, I think that is one area we could do that. Another area where I think Europe is beset with aging population and obviously, understandably, immigration issue. I think we have a strategic engagement plan with EU, where not only the HR, the skilled HR needed by the European countries can be customized and can be organized so that there is no illegal immigration, and also there is a continuous stream of skilled human resource that is required so badly by a number of European countries, particularly in areas of IT, healthcare, and so on and so forth, that could also help boost our economic and other bilateral relations. So therefore, my last comment with respect to relations is that the foreign policy is not a question of either or. While India can still benefit from Russian hardware and equipment, Pakistan's occasional foray with enhancing cooperation with Russia do not quite go well with our Western partners. So therefore, we would, as Pakistan, as a key member of South Asia, we would like to maintain a balanced relationship with all the poles of the world, all our strategic partners, so that the world can be a peaceful and a stable place, and perhaps there is a lot to cooperate, because this South Asian region, because of the simmering political disputes, continues to remain in a perennial conflictual situation. And I think with the EU, with their influence that they can exercise on a number of countries, most notably on India, I think the key issue of Kashmir, if it gets resolved, I think the over 2 billion people of South Asia can breathe a sigh of relief and propel more than 50% of people below the poverty line to a more prosperous future as a region and within the countries. So I thank you all for patient listening. It has been a great pleasure to listen to Professor Tom and Ambassador Azaz Chaudhry. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral Khanasham, explaining us from the maritime lens and also explaining from the global strategic lens, and also sharing that how Pakistan wants to be viewed in Europe as well. And so we have a next speaker with us. We have just 2 speakers left. So after that, we will definitely have question answer session. So we have Professor Carlos Gasper. He's a professor at the university and the Department of International Relations. So Professor Carlos, floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to join such a distinguished panel with our Pakistani colleagues and Professor Luis Tomé. I want to thank especially the words of Ambassador Chaudhry about relations between Portugal and Pakistan. Portugal is a small European country, but it is a very old country, and old countries have long memories. And we remember quite well that back in the 1960s, after India's invasion of Goa, when Portugal was left standing alone in the face of India, was left by its Western allies standing alone in the face of India, Pakistan proved to be a very relevant ally. And I think that spirit is still very much present on the bilateral relations between Portugal and Pakistan. As Ambassador Chaudhry said at the beginning of his presentation, the post-war order is no longer with us. And the main trend in international relations is a trend towards a new division of the international system in 2 camps. Some even speak about new Cold War or a Cold War 2.0. And this has been, in a sense, accelerated by the Russian invasion of the Ukraine back in 2022. And of course, by the consolidation of the Russia-China alliance in the last few years,
and also in the shift in the United States foreign policy priorities, especially since the last presidential election. And these changes, of course, are at the origin of relevant changes in the relations between Europe and South Asia. I would like to mention 3 points in my presentation. Firstly, European elites and decision makers recognize the increasing strategic interdependence between the Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific communities. Since 2022, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, and Singapore have joined the European Union and the United States in imposing sanctions on Russia after the invasion of the Ukraine. In the framework of an enlarged G7, Japan, South Korea, and Australia have played an important role in establishing the common strategies of the collective West, not only vis-à-vis Russia, but also vis-à-vis China. China and Russia being, of course, perceived to be close allies at this juncture. European solidarity with Ukraine resistance against Russia's invasion is presented as a struggle for democracy against imperialism, and it has changed European positions towards Taiwan. Taiwan is now increasingly recognized as a democracy whose independence is threatened by an imperialist autocracy. Japan, South Korea, and Australia are members of the contact group for the defense of the Ukraine meeting at Ramstein. Also, the presence of North Korean troops on the front lines of the Russian-Ukraine war stresses the strategic interdependence between the conflicts in the western and the eastern extremes of Greater Eurasia and enhance the solidarity between the democratic communities in the Atlantic and in the Pacific. And this, of course, goes a long way to confirm the tendency towards a division in 2 camps, which was stressed by Ambassador Chaudhry. Secondly, the evolution of U.S. foreign policies and the latent transatlantic crisis make for a greater awareness of the growing importance of relations between European and Asian intermediate powers or middle powers, concentrating on protecting their interests in the context of the competition between the 2 major international powers, the United States and China. France, Germany, and of course Great Britain increasingly value relations with Asian intermediate powers, including Japan, South Korea, Australia, and India. In the case of India, it is necessary to mention the strategic relevance of the India-Middle East-Europe corridor, which has been alluded to by Admiral Khan. And as he said, the IMEC is mainly designed to counter the expansion of Greater Eurasia and China's Belt and Road Initiative. The new proposed axis linking India, the Middle East, and Europe is an attempt to neutralize China's regional penetration in the Persian Gulf and to counter the strategic convergence between China, Russia, and Iran. The IMEC project should build up a connectivity network linking the Indian Ocean, the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean. France, Germany, and Italy and also Greece are very much committed to the IMEC initiative, which includes, of course, the European Union. In different settings, Great Britain, but also France and Italy are present in the Red Sea fighting against the Houthis in order to protect freedom of navigation in a crucial maritime line of communication connecting Europe and Asia. Sadly, France and Germany both approved official documents on their respective Indo-Pacific strategies, which recognize the decisive importance of relations between Europe and Asia. The European Union Indo-Pacific strategy adopted in 2021 also recognizes the relevance of this new dimension in European foreign policies. France and Germany are very much the leading European powers defining EU relations towards India, South Asia, and the Indian Ocean. Both countries have rather different relations with India, as does Great Britain. But in each and every case, India seems to be at the core of relations with South Asia and the Indian Ocean, where both France and Great Britain still retain overseas possessions. The relation between France and India is especially close. Both France and India are strong proponents of a doctrine of strategic autonomy, and their bilateral relations focus on the security and defense dimensions. India has acquired Rafale fighters, which were engaged in the latest conflict with Pakistan. Apparently, France and India have an agreement granting access of their ships to their respective naval facilities, including the French naval base at Djibouti and eventually also the French facilities in the United Arab Emirates. France is also at the forefront of the IMEC initiative. The partnership between France and India seems to be rather stronger and more confident than India's partnerships with either Germany or Great Britain. Germany is also a member of the IMEC framework, but its relations with India focus on trade, science and technology, and also education. There are over 450 cooperation programs between German and Indian universities, and 50,000 Indian university students in Germany, the largest group of foreign students in Germany. They also focused bilateral relations between Germany and India, also focus on recruiting professional cadres as immigrants to Germany, and on concluding the negotiations on the EU-India free trade agreement, which were relaunched in 2022. The European Union and India have also created a bilateral trade and technology council. And as you know, the only other one trade and technology council of the European Union is that which was established between the European Union and the United States. This stresses the centrality of India in foreign relations of the EU in what concerns the construction of a separate technological sphere in the competition with China and Russia. I'm going to conclude. Germany and France, as well as the United States and Great Britain, look at India not only as a major power in South Asia, the regional hegemon, in the words of Admiral Khan, but also, more importantly, as one of the future 3 or 4 great powers at the center of the international balance of power. This perception, which may or may not be accurate, goes a long way to explain the lack of balance in EU relations with South Asia, which increasingly concentrate on India and tend to overlook other major regional players, namely Pakistan, which are equally critical not only for the stability of South Asia, but more broadly to the overall balance in the Indian Ocean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Carlos Gesper, for your insightful comments. Now I move towards the final speaker of this seminar and conference, that is Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi Sahiba. She has been Pakistan's former ambassador to the European Union, Belgium, Luxembourg, and also Pakistan's ambassador to China. So, Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi Sahiba, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. To begin with, a very good afternoon to all my European friends. And I think it's a very good initiative to have these kinds of conferences and seminars with academic institutions because it enriches each other, and it also helps to fill in any gaps that we might have in our understanding of each other's positions. So I am delighted to be a part of this, and I have very patiently heard all the speakers, and I must say that I may agree with some of the points presented, and frankly speaking, I really do not agree with a number of points that have been put on the table by different speakers. So if I have the liberty, because we are in an academic space, to be candid, I would really appreciate that. Now, as far as I am concerned, I started my career with France, and I've had 5 postings in Europe, along with having the privilege of being the longest serving ambassador of Pakistan to the European Union. So I have, I followed the European Union. I have studied in the European Union. My children have gone to academic institutions there. And a major part of my career was spent in the European, which means that my understanding of Europe and our relationship with the EU particularly is based on what I have seen. So to begin with, I think what should be a very strong relation of the EU with South Asia has actually turned into a very strong relationship of the EU with India to the exclusion of everybody else. And I say this because till 1979, before the Afghanistan jihad, our relations with the European Union were very constructive. We had investors from there, we had transfer of technology, and because Europe and Pakistan, let us say, have civilizational contacts. We are both civilizational areas, and a lot of our, our thinking, our, philosophical orientations, our trade has been exchanges with Europe. So in that context, I think the relationship still lacks the depth and the intensity that it should. And the other South Asian countries, if I may speak on their behalf as well, feel that while along with India, we were also colonized, because of geostrategic and geopolitical and geoeconomic considerations, EU's attitude towards India has transcended and has now transformed into a strategic partnership, while that mindset of colonialism and of patronizing and sanctions and of petty development assistance is still there, and many of my colleagues here have said it. I don't want to repeat it. Naturally, there is no morality where national interests are concerned, and we have seen that. While EU considers itself to be the citadel of human rights and democracy and, rule-based principles, unfortunately, the reality is on the contrary. I will give you the example of Kashmir. I found it very strange when one of my colleagues in his presentation said that Kashmir was not a multilateral issue. Excuse me, there were 9 co-sponsors to the resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir in the UN Security Council. And many of them were your European colleagues, including Belgium and Ireland and some other countries. So it is an issue, an international issue that was brought to the United Nations Security Councils by India, co-sponsored by our European partners. And it still is on the agenda. To say that it's not an international issue, I think is not historically or presently correct. As far as human rights are concerned, yes, every development assistance, however little, that is given to, I will only restrain myself to South Asian countries other than India, is absolutely conditional, including the GSP plus, to the 27 human rights conventions, international conventions that we have also signed, and we are proud that we are following those conventions. But the people of Pakistan question, the people of Bangladesh question, the people of Sri Lanka and Bhutan and Maldives question the basis on which this selective morality and principle of upholding human rights is undertaken by the European Union. What is happening in Jammu and Kashmir, almost the genocide that is happening there, we see India, the EU still pumping armament and aid and investments and everything in India. And there's not a word about what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir. There is not a word of any, caution or anything about what Mr. Modi has turned India into, a fascist state where not only the human rights of the Muslims, the Christians, the Sikhs are being blatantly violated, but also of their own lower caste Hindus. So let us not really, I don't even want to go into this debate of a rule-based, systems and democracy. These are all cliches which are used when it is beneficial to the larger geoeconomic, geostrategic considerations of the bigger powers. As far as Europe is concerned, I think I actually totally, absolutely, after being in Europe most of my career, totally support what de Gaulle said when he took France out of NATO. He said, of what significance is a country if it doles out its defense and foreign policy to a bigger country and an organization whose decisions are dependent on the will of the largest country, which is the US. So as far as the foreign policy of Europe is concerned, I think it's absolutely and totally subservient to the will of the United States. So when Macron, got up and said, standing in China's capital, Beijing, that Europe needs to have more strategic independence, I think he is echoing what General de Gaulle said. So how Europe can, interact judiciously, on its own as a sovereign bloc of very important political bloc and economic bloc is very hard to comprehend, because it has already doled out its foreign policy and defense to the US and NATO. Now, let us talk about terrorism. I really was very amused when one of my colleagues here mentioned, sort of implying that Pakistan was involved in, extraterritorial terrorism, particularly in reference to India, completely ignoring the fact that Pakistan has for years now shouted and screamed at the top of its voice, giving all possible evidence to the European Parliament, to the European capitals, and every European institution of possible. And yet, not a word is spoken about India. And the entire blame, whether it is, right or wrong, is squarely placed on Pakistan. This is something, I'm sorry, the people of Pakistan and the people of other South Asian countries are fed up of this attitude. That is why, sorry if I'm being very candid, you are talking of BMAC and whatever. Look at the attitude of the Bengalis, the Bangladesh. They have very clearly said during our conflict that Bangladesh should stand by Pakistan. We are fed up of the hegemonic, bullying of India. Look where Nepal is today. Nepal is so well connected and entrenched with the Chinese, whether it's through connectivity or through trade, through development assistance. The same goes with Maldives, who told the Indians to please let me speak. You have given other people a let.
Just I want to add one thing. If you conclude this in 2-3 minutes, because we will be just left with 30 minutes for question answer. That's what I want to say. Say whatever you like, but
no, but please understand. I mean, you've given others a bit of time. At least give me 5 minutes. So what I'm saying here is, Europe is very important to us because we are culturally, as I said, and intellectually more close to Europe than to America or the Chinese or anybody else. But unfortunately, this is not the same with the European Union, who's being very, very selective in South Asia, only concentrating on one country, closing their eyes completely to all human rights violation, all terrorism emanating from there. So we understand that you are in competition with the Chinese and you want to encircle them. All that is fine. But the people of Pakistan, we have a huge diaspora there. You are the second largest trading partner. We would like to continue to have very, very good relationship with you, but they have to be balanced. And, we cannot have an EU patronizing us, lecturing us, while still closing their eyes, absolutely blind towards where India is going and supporting. That is taken as the EU being against our national interest. So as friends, and if you have that kind of diplomatic and political and defense, sovereignty, other than, from the Americans, then I think it is now time for the EU to rethink how it is looking at South Asia, because India today is isolated. None of the South Asian countries are with them, including Afghanistan, who in our 2 days, 3 days fight with the war with the Indians, ensured the Pakistanis that the western border will not be disturbed and will remain silent. So please, this connectivity dream of yours, BMAC, is not going to take off except in papers. It is not possible. Just like the Eurasian connectivity plan of the Americans who, in the 80s, and the Americans wanted the Europeans to pay for it, never took off the ground. So I think Pakistan, being good friends of the EU, would like to continue to have very good relations with the EU while maintaining our absolutely strategic relationship with the Chinese, because that is where our national interest, sovereignty, and territorial integrity rests. We would like EU to rethink its attitude and its policy towards South Asia, and not just hinge on India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi, for your remarks. Now I will give the floor to Professor Lewis because you have the people in front of you who wants to ask questions, and I'm sure I can't see the much of those, so it will be great if you can take questions, and I think
I would love to.
Ambassador Azad Ahmed Chaudhry, Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi, Admiral Khan Hasham, and Professor sitting with you is they're all willing to answer the question. So the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Dr. Kamashima. I give the floor to our students and participants here for those who want to make questions, or of course online. But let me just say, I understand and agree with most of what the Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi just said. But of course, the Ambassador knows quite well that the European Union is an identified political object. So when we are mentioning the European Union, you need to differentiate not only the member states, but also the institutions. And the European Parliament is approving a lot of resolutions criticizing India on human rights issues, including on Kashmir. So, of course, we are talking about the European Union, but what the European Parliament is thinking and doing is not the same thing what the European Commission is doing. And of course, the European Council and most of the member states are thinking in another way. But I agree completely with you that sometimes there is a selective morality, and sometimes we are too much focused on India. But at the same time, we are not looking only to human rights or democracy or good governance. We are also looking, for instance, terrorism problems. And we need to recognize that Pakistan is having a lot of issues with terrorism. There are also a lot of accusations of official or unofficial authorities in Pakistan supporting some extremist and terrorist groups. So, in our perspective, we are neutral on the Kashmir issue. The European Union is a pro-multilateralization of the discussion of Kashmir. But much more than Pakistan, India is against mediation, a third-party mediation, is against multilateralizing the discussions. And unfortunately, we, as the whole European Union, don't have enough leverage, power, influence, both in Pakistan and India, to be able to mediate. Ambassador, please. I see your hand. Go ahead.
Can I just respond?
Yeah, of course.
Look, that is where political sagacity and, European Union is the largest political gathering the largest political bloc. So I find it very amusing to say that India does not want, third-party intervention or multilateralism. Excuse me, European Union, three of the European Union members are in the security. Two of the European Union members are members of the Security Council as well. You have to get up and tell India it is a multilateral issue. It is on the agenda. You cannot say we are neutral to it, because then you are defying a multilateral system. It is not possible. As far as third-party mediation is concerned, India itself has gone and asked Mr. Trump now for ceasefire and have accepted the mediation which President Trump has now offered. So I think as a very influential political bloc that understands Asia and Middle East much, much, much better than the Americans, we expect our European friends, our European colleagues to be more forthcoming, to be more rule-based, and not to say that we are neutral. And we, just because India says it's not a multilateral issue, we'll believe it. I think that really doesn't speak of the political and strategic and economic strength that European Union has, particularly in Asia. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a correction. There is only one EU member at the
now, but UK
UN
was also a member.
Council.
They've just gone.
UK
They're now wanting to come back.
France speaks for itself in the UN Security Council. The European Union is not a member. But
yeah, I know you're not a member. I said two of your members.
So can we take questions from students if there are any? So if you can broaden the discussion, please.
Questions in the auditorium?
Or if in case Ambassador Azaz, you want to comment anything, if there is no question, Professor Luis, is there any question?
There is a comment here.
May I ask our colleagues in Pakistan to develop a bit the relevance of their very close relationship with China, which I think is not very well understood in Europe. Thank you.
Can I answer that question?
Yes, madam, please.
As I said, I've had 5 postings in Europe, but I've also had 2 in China. So I thought that maybe let me answer that question. Let me put it this way. We want good relationship with everybody, including the US. They've been as strategic partners. We've been non-NATO allies. That also includes the EU. We've had very good relations with the EU. We want to maintain very good relations with EU. But as far as our strategic compass is concerned, there is no doubt in the minds of anyone in Pakistan that our strategic compass is very firmly oriented towards the Chinese. It always was, is, and will always be, because we might have, some economic interests with Europe and with the Americans, but they have never ever supported us when we really needed them and were always abandoned. And our enemy, the Indians, have been supported. So if we do not maintain strategic relationship with China, then our entire national interest and sovereignty and territorial integrity would be in danger. Therefore, if you look at Pakistan today, it is not that it has happened over 5 years or 10 years. Our relationship with each other now spans 75 years. And in those 75 years, irrespective of whether we were actually in the Western camp, members of CETO and CENTO, or we were, non-NATO allies or partners in war on terror, we have never, ever compromised our relationship with China. Our relationship with the Americans have been transactional, and we want to have a long-term stable relationship with the Americans and the European Union, but there is no doubt in anybody's mind where our strategic relationship is. And I think the European Union should have no problems with that, because the Indians that they support so much and idealize so much have a strategic relationship. They had it with the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union. They have it with Russia, and under no circumstances have they compromised their relationship with Russia. And we saw that during the Ukraine crisis. So if that can be taken as a given, yes, we are strategic. India is a strategic partner with the West, but still has a preference for their Russian strategic partnership. So when push comes to shove, they stand by the Russians. So when push comes to shove, we stand by the Chinese, and the Chinese stand by us. And this is something that should be they should be understood by the Europeans and the Americans, just as they understand that and accommodate that with the Indians. So we want good relations with the West, no doubts about it, both with European Union and the Americans, but our strategic interests lie elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a question here from the audience.
Thanks a lot. I will provide, I promise, a very brief context, but then I will ask an actual question. First of all, let me thank to the panel, Dr. Chaudhry, Dr. Kisham, the ambassador, and it's always good, and I mean it sincerely, when some dissent is brought to the debate. I think when we talk about the European Union and Pakistan, and I mostly refer to, there was some potential for the future that was mentioned in the first intervention, but I mostly mentioned the intervention of the ambassador. There were two separate issues. Either we define relationships on strategic interests, and now the ambassador was saying that for reasons that are perfectly understandable, the Pakistanis have a strategic relationship with China and they don't have with others. That's perfectly fine. Or we define ourselves as normative actors. Sometimes there is a blurring, and I agree that there is some hypocrisy from the European Union in how it has, especially in the beginning of this century, not always defined if it was a geopolitical actor or a normative actor. Maybe there is an overdue effort to make this clear. But here, when it comes to this division, I frankly have a bit of a confusion. And this is where the question is. The Pakistan state has a strategic relationship with China of mutual interest over other partners. Well, the European Union or the European countries, because they are different things, they can also prefer India to other actors. This is also perfectly acceptable. And we talked about the case of France. Pakistan as a mutual beneficial strategic alliance partnership with China. France, I think it's fair to say, as it was mentioned, as one with India. Well, this is perfectly acceptable. We choose our partners connected to our interests. If we move to the normative side, while I agree with some of what was said, I think there is an exam of conscience, and I'm not exactly an expert, I have to say, on the Kashmir issue. But there was a point raised by Professor Luis Tomé about terrorism. My impression, and this is the impression that I've seen in several reports of the EU, is that, frankly speaking, because we are being frank, Pakistan has not had the cooperation on terrorism that the European Union seeks. And it's perfectly fair. Maybe there are good reasons. This is what we've been seeing. This is what we've been seeing. And this is, I think, was the point that was raised by Professor Luis Tomé. So maybe this is perceived as unfair, and I think we should not be bogged down into whether there is terrorism on each of the sides, but I would really like to hear you provide a perspective, the Pakistan perspective on this point, because you provided the perspective on what Professor Luis Tomé mentioned about the India not wanting to be a multilateral issue. We got that. But what about the perception from the European Union? Maybe it is unfair that the terrorism cooperation with India apparently is better than Pakistan. So to summarize, One thing is interests, and everybody has interests. The second part on the normative part. Thank you.
So can I answer that?
Yeah,
Because I know the mechanisms there. Well, thank you very much. Yes, EU has the liberty and each country has the liberty to choose their strategic partners. Good luck to you. And good luck to us. Now, as far as terrorism is concerned, let's see, where did terrorism emerge from? To begin with, Pakistan has been in the front line on the fight against terrorism, a terrorism that was brought to Pakistan and to the region, not by Pakistan. It was brought in because of the conflict between, the last battle of Cold War that was fought between the Soviet Union and the Western powers in the garb of a jihad. When their interests were done, they left and left all the terrorism in the region and Pakistan to deal with it. Pakistan has lost 260 billion losses only in trade and economy, not to count anything else. We lost 90,000 civilians and soldiers in the war against. Every day, Pakistan is being, subjected to terrorism, which is aided and abated by the Indians, both in Balochistan and through their proxies in Afghanistan, to which we have constantly been giving evidence and nobody has. We have extremely good anti-terrorism cooperation with the Americans and the European Union. That is why we've been able to apprehend some of the top terrorists and handed them over to the Americans, and there's a lot of, we have a very strong mechanism of anti-terrorism cooperation and dialogue going on with the EU as well. Having said that, how can you say that India is cooperating? They've had so many false flag operations on Pakistan, and they have attacked, they've killed their own people and blamed Pakistan, and have always refused neutral investigations, third-party investigations, international investigations. So how can they be cooperative? Right now, on the Pahalgam thing, also Pakistan said, they have nothing to do with it, let's investigate. India does not want to come in investigations because they themselves are responsible. What cooperation? They went and killed Canadian citizens in Canada, sponsored by the Indian state. UK, same thing happened. America, they tried and the Americans busted their, plan. Australia had to declare 4 of their people, embassy people, as persona non grata, involved in planning terrorist activities. So where is the cooperation? Where is India cooperating? If India, you think, cooperates with you, please, we have asked everybody in the world, let us investigate the terrorist attacks that have happened in India and in Pakistan, and particularly the most recent. Please bring them to the table and we'll see how much they cooperate with you. They have not cooperated. They are making you and your allies targets of state-sponsored terrorism. I think sooner or later, the world will have to wake up to this reality. Thank you.
So, is there any question, or we can take comments if Ambassador Azaz Nisham wants to share, or Professor, if you want to share any comment? Yeah, Khan Hisham wants to say something. Admiral,
Please unmute yourself. The sound.
Admiral Khan Hisham, please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to give comments on the couple of issues which have been discussed. It is agreed that both EU, Pakistan, for that matter, India, any sovereign country in the world has a free choice to pursue its strategic interests the way it suits. So what my point is that there are, even within the context of EU-Pakistan or EU-South Asia relations, we need to dehyphenate EU relations with Pakistan and India. We need to dehyphenate the two countries. That's one. The other is that I had pointed out a number of areas which both EU and Pakistan have commonality of interests, and they can stand to cooperate, whether it is human development or a framework for skilled manpower export from Pakistan to address some of the critical issues, the climate change, and so on and so forth. So there are enough avenues where the geopolitical considerations between the two could be at variance, yet there are areas where we can cooperate. As far as counterterrorism is concerned, I'm sure everyone would appreciate that dealing with terrorism is a transnational crime. There are linkages externally with terrorist organizations, and they get support from various countries. So therefore, we have no choice, but it is a matter of compulsion that all elements or all parties who want peace and deal with terrorism must cooperate, and cooperate in terms of capacity building, in terms of information sharing, in terms of fighting the terror financial networks, and cooperating wherever possible. Pakistan, particularly in the maritime, I can speak for sure that under the UN Security Council Resolution 1373, the Coalition Maritime Campaign Plan have successfully dealt and cooperated with international communities to ensure that no terrorist incident takes place at sea. Similarly, we have cooperated with a number of European countries for the World Food Programme to Somalia and so on and so forth, and similarly anti-smuggling, anti-drug operations, and there is a huge cooperation. And I think maritime arena is one area where the cooperation has been natural and has been quite heartwarming. So therefore, counterterrorism, whereas Pakistan remains a victim, having endured for many, many years, we would be the number one candidate to see to it that terrorism, not only in Pakistan, but across the world, is eradicated. Thank you so much.
May I have, if there is no questions, I have one question to our Pakistan friends, and of course related with Ukraine, because we are mentioning human rights, good governance, but what Russia is doing in Ukraine is war crimes. Still, Pakistan wants to be neutral. My feeling is that territorial integrity of Pakistan is now much more threatened as many other countries in the world. So why Pakistan is keeping very good relations, business as usual with Russia? Are you not being more threatened right now? And in the future, if Russia wins? I heard the words of the ambassador Nagan Hashmi calling Ukraine crisis not war, not invasion. It is an aggression. It is a violation of the rules of the United Nations. So I think in a European perspective that if Pakistan follow a different approach on Ukraine war, on Russian aggression, maybe a lot of Europeans to stop seeing Pakistan as a puppet of China and differentiate Pakistan as a democracy that supports international law, that criticizes and sanctions the aggressors, and not put on the same basket the invaded and the aggressor. So, could you please?
Can I just add one sentence?
Yes.
And after that, Ambassador Azaz can, if you, Ambassador
Yes,
Azaz,
I just want to say two sentences. To begin with, I'm sorry, we are nobody's puppet. It's a mutual partnership that has lasted 75 years and will last another 750 years. So we are nobody's puppet. We are in no alliance like NATO where one superpower will make everybody else a puppet. So we're not puppets. Please don't call us puppets. Secondly, are the Kashmiri and Palestinian lives any cheaper than those of the Ukrainians? Each single life is important. Whether that blood is shed in Ukraine or it is shed in Palestine or in Gaza, where the entire European Union is supplying arms to kill children. So let us not even go in that domain, because that is very, very dangerous domain. So let us not call morality into question here, because as far as international law is concerned, we are not discussing that topic here. Otherwise, I think the West is quite out of sync and the wrong side of history and international law in Ukraine as well. And your European colleagues have very strong feelings about it too. And Europe is very deeply divided on this as well. So let's just leave it at that. And let's say, once European Union starts to put all human life as equal weightage, then we'll talk of human rights. And then we'll talk of war crimes. I would love to see European Union come out and say Netanyahu is committing war crimes, and stop and put sanctions on them and stop facilitating them to kill innocent Palestinian, and stop facilitating India to kill innocent Kashmiris in Kashmir. Thank you.
All right. If I could come in, moderator.
Yes, please go ahead.
Go
I
ahead.
think
yes, Ambassador, please.
Okay, I'll just, if you allow, I'll just make a roundup of many points that were raised, sort of concluding remarks from our side, and then the Portuguese side can do that. I do understand that every country and every region follows its own national interests, and therefore it is a strategic autonomy that everybody exercises. So if European Union has stronger relationship with India, it makes sense for them. It's a big market, bigger country, and they want to have relationship with India. Pakistan should not have any objections to it, nor does it have any objections to it. It's not a zero sum. The approach is that if you are taking a higher moral ground of, say, human rights violation, then it should be seen equally in other parts of the world as well, including in what we call as Indian occupied Kashmir, and also in Palestine, as Ambassador Nurman Hashim pointed out. Otherwise, if you have relationship with India, that is, of course, there's no issue with it. Pakistan has good relations with China. Pakistan also has good relations with US. We have had sustained periods of engagement, close engagement actually, with the United States. And therefore, even today, the government of Pakistan has a policy of pursuing good relations with all. European Union is an important player. It's a very large trading partner of Pakistan. How can we ignore, despite whatever our expectations may be from the European Union? As for terrorism, I think we have really fought hard. Where we have failed, in my view, or we have been lacking, is that we have not been able to demonstrate to the world how much we have fought. Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi pointed out some. But even in other domains, what India alleges is cross-border terrorism or terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan. They recently bombarded a place called Muridgeh, saying that it is LET headquarters, whereas if you go there, there is absolutely nothing except a mosque and schools and some other places. People go there anytime. And so therefore, just because India has used a particular phrase for so many times and it has a bigger clout, bigger presence in the US and the West doesn't mean that it is right on these things. Financial Action Task Force teams came, 1373 UN Security Council, 1373 monitoring committee teams came. They all gave a clean bill of health to Pakistan on that. So I think where we need to actually demonstrate more, perhaps I'm talking to myself, is that we should perhaps showcase more to you what we have done. Unfortunately, India has an ideologically driven government at this time. Otherwise, there were periods where we used to engage, but for the last 9 years, this government has not engaged with Pakistan in any domain. And it is not Pakistan which is saying, no, we don't want to talk. It is India, which is repeatedly saying that it doesn't want to talk. If you want to have IMEC, which has, of course, been put on hold, and I saw the map, shows whole of Kashmir as part of India, which we don't accept actually in that kind of map. We believe that Gilgit-Baltistan and AJK are Pakistan administered Kashmir, and therefore we will always have reservations on you can do what you think must be done, but we also believe that we also would have our reservations on these things. Ukraine, and there have been two views in Pakistan. One view was that a bigger country has invaded a relatively smaller neighbor and occupied a part of this territory. So therefore, it is a violation of the cardinal principle of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And therefore, Russia is wrong. Then there are other views that Ukraine, Russia was sort of had the understanding from the US since 1994 that NATO would not move an inch eastward after Warsaw Pact has been dissolved, but it didn't happen. So it kept creeping forward, and Ukraine was kind of red line for Russia, because that would bring, if Ukraine were to join NATO, that would bring NATO missiles right on the borders of Russia. So Russians acted in their own national security. That was the second perspective in Pakistan, and that's why Pakistan opted to abstain on that resolution, though we explained in our position that aggression must be condemned and aggression must not take place. I think this explanation vote is on record. Ukrainians have been displaced, their human rights have been violated, but that's what we are saying, that there should be no double standards. The same kind of standards should also be applied on Kashmir and on Palestine and wherever else. So normative framework has to be applied more uniformly. That all said, I believe we must not let all this fog us from what we can be done in positive arrangement. For example, European Union is the largest trading partner of Pakistan as a whole. And we have very solid positive relationship with most countries of Europe. And therefore, I think Pakistan regards Europe as a very important continent for Pakistan. And then Admiral Hasham spoke of the potential of huge cooperation in maritime space. I would say that there are other areas also, such as education. I know that hundreds of thousands of Pakistani students are studying in various European universities now. Likewise, there are some other areas of cooperation which are not that well known. So it's not just a security driven. I saw the graph that you had prepared, in which Pakistan and Bangladesh was just shown as security driven partnership of our European Union. I think we need to broaden that lens, because there is so much else that can be brought on the table. On the whole, we believe our relationship with Europe is very, very important. And such gatherings as this one is important because we need to clarify to each other our respective positions, but the common space that we have on which to work together for mutual benefit is of course too important. We have our differences on situations, particularly with regard to India in Kashmir, but I believe that Pakistan needs to also keep its focus on what is possible in terms of cooperation. We should not throw baby with the bathwater. So that bathwater is actually very, very important for Pakistan. Maybe we should continue our dialogue. And I think with most European countries, Pakistan has a bilateral political consultations. And that's where we actually exchange our views. But this is an academic environment, so therefore we were more candid and more free. And I hope it would be taken in the same light. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think it is a very good way to close our panel. On behalf of the Autónoma University of Lisbon, we want to thank, of course, Sanober Institute, Dr. Kamashima, Ambassador Chowdhury, Admiral Khan, Ambassador Ashmi. I think it is a very fruitful discussion, and I think my perception is, if it is in our hands, the EU-South Asia relations would be much better in a better world. So, Dr. Kamashima, I give you the final word. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Professor Luis. It's a great to have to have a conversation with you and at the university. And I know many people are watching, and the students must have been more beneficial by understanding the South Asian perspective from the Pakistani lens as well. And I think Pakistan and all the countries, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, all these countries have enough to contribute. And I think we are contributing already. And I think what we have seen over the period of time, in just 1 minute, I'm completing that we believe that sometimes we need to zoom out. We need to pause and zoom out and look at the region that which country can perform well, or which country has a potential. Pakistan is also 250 million people population. We can deliver so much to the Europe, and we are looking forward to that. And so does India, a market of 1.4 billion people, and then so does Bangladesh. So I think this conversation today has definitely helped us to understand what the European Union is thinking about South Asia, Pakistan, and India, and the region. And I think the Portuguese perspective has come to us. I think this is very much beneficial. Thank you very much, Professor Luis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you, and a very big hug to our Pakistan friends.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.